Just the other day, Cover, the corporation behind the Hololive brand, which possesses dozens and dozens of VTubers, many of them extremely successful, in fact leaders in their field of entertainment, released, accidentally in all due likelihood, seeing as it has since been yeeted, a document detailing a large part of their business strategy and risks and earnings, etc. Clearly this document was intended for, behind-the-scene purposes, and probably to entice investors as well, judging by the layout, but, well, it popped up on the internet somehow, and I got to have a quick little look at it before it was all yeetus-deletust. And there were some very interesting little things here, particularly in the risk management section, where they mentioned that they are currently entirely reliant on platforms like YouTube to create their revenue through ad views and primarily super chats, where they earn a truly absurd quantity of cash. In fact, the average earnings of the Hololive idols so far is at 200 million Japanese yen per year. Now, that is not quite as an absurd a sum of money as it sounds, because the yen is worth next to nothing, but that still comes out at $1.5 million per member per year, with Hololive having something like 75 odd little talents. So yeah, that is still a non-insignificant quantity of cash rolling into their bank accounts, well, every single solitary year. We also know that some of their biggest performances, like the retirement of Kiryu Koko, for example, apparently generated something along the lines of $300,000 in a single stream. So, profitable, very profitable. But they announced here that they knew that, being reliant on a platform like YouTube, which can be a mercurial entity at the best of times, is hardly a safe and secure business strategy. In fact, we've got a recent example of just what a sword of Damocles it can be, as my friend Sargon announced today, actually, at the time of recording anyways, that his channel, well, actually, that's kind of the gist, it's not his channel, the Lotus Eaters, which is a legally separate and distinct entity from Sargon of Akkad and his personal YouTube channels, had been demonetized. Why? Well, not due to any violations of the terms of service, as Sargon and his crew had gone out of their way to ensure that they were not in violation of any terms of service, no matter how vague or ridiculous, to the point of even making sure that they committed no swear words, like even saying shit, for example, was banned on the channel because, well, it could potentially get them in trouble. No, instead, the channel was demonetized because it was associated with other YouTube channels that had been deemed in violation of the terms of service. So a legally distinct entity was demonetized for being associated with another channel. Yeah, we all know why they did it, of course, but it goes to show just how petty YouTube can get. And so a massive corporation like Cover and Hololive would want to secure their revenue stream, and so they were planning to make their own streaming service. An unlikely savior. Very, very much so. An extraordinarily unlikely savior, and to be fair, likely to be censorious in its very own interesting ways, just like YouTube is. But nevertheless, the idea of a major competitor finally emerging for YouTube is something I've been, well, dreaming about for a very long time, as I tried to pick a piece of dirt out of my eye. And so far, all of the alternatives have not really succeeded in being true alternatives due to the vicious circle of YouTube, where you have to have the talent to get the viewers, which in turn produce the money, which in turn gets the talent. And so unless you have all three essentially in effect immediately, you are going to be lacking out on one of the critical core key components. If you don't have the money, you don't get the talents. If you don't have the talents, you don't get the audience. And if you don't have the audience, you don't get the money. Breaking into this cycle is rather difficult, but Hololive, of course, they have the talent. As such, they will have the audience, which are loyal to them, and they already have plenty of bank to produce the platform. As such, they will also have the cash, and with hordes of loyal fans, they will quickly see a revenue source form as well. It might just work. But there are, of course, some problems here as well, and that is the whole VTuber thing in and of itself. See, here's the thing. I loathe the VTuber business model. I hate it. I think it's actually evil. No, I'm not exaggerating here. I genuinely believe that the whole corporate VTuber thing is abusive as all hell. Like, here's the thing. They impose very strict rules and regulations on behavioral patterns and any and all drama they might get into on these individual talents. And the thing is, they might have to. There is even a part in their little risk assessment segment where they recognize that the biggest danger to their company and brand, well, is their talents. Which sounds ridiculous. I mean, how could the golden goose possibly threaten the farmer? But think of this. Imagine for a moment their biggest VTubing talent at the moment, Gaurgura, you know, the little lolly shark thing, dropping in a moment of heated frustration a PewDiePie word of the gamer variant. Unlikely, but best case scenario, she is merely harassed off the internet. Worst case scenario, some kind of overarching governmental entity gets involved and starts asking questions like, what is this entertainment doing to our young people? As, at least in part, this was what happened when Hololive was forced to close its entire branch in China, yeeting, well, half a dozen talents in the process? Due to lots of troubles with the Chinese government, and as a, well, result of the massive amount of harassment and fallout created by the graduation of Kiryu Koko, as she had garnered herself quite the hate following in China, which probably led to her graduation, although it was also voluntary, which is demonstrated by the fact that she is, I think, the only graduated talent who is still allowed to be on their website and still has her channel up, but, you know, I'm not an expert on this matter, so if I'm wrong, sorry. But all of the other graduated talents, of which, what, there's been like half a dozen or so, maybe a little bit more, not taking into consideration the yeeting of the Chinese branch, which would have provided another half a dozen or so, which have been fired from Hololive due to various circumstances over the years. Now, Hololive has been in production with doing English idol agency nonsense for, what is it, 5 years or so? And out of a total of 75 members, having only yeeted 6 or 7 of them, well, it's not the worst percentage statistic in the world, but it also does indicate that surviving as a member of this kind of corporations requires threading a line, shall we say. You gotta step carefully, and if you don't, you disappear. Like, this shit ruins lives, I'm almost certain. You go from having an enormous income, a solid job for years, and then just, you're gone. Now, in the case of people like Kiryu Koko, for example, she managed to land on her feet, and lucky for her, and several of the others have as well, I believe, but Jesus Christ, like, as a YouTuber on this platform, I know what the sword of Damocles feels like, and that's, I mean, it's gotta be even worse with that kind of income, and that kind of insecurity as well, as of course the corporation owns the VTube avatar as well. I do not like the business model. I don't. I consider it ethically questionable at best, and a complete violation of what YouTube was intended to be back in the day, but hey, with corporate YouTube channels popping up left, right, and centre on the platform as well, I suppose I'm simply just an antiquated dinosaur in that particular regard. And there can also be the argument, of course, that the corporation has to be very strict with their talents and their idols, because what they are selling is not what, well, I am selling, for example. I am selling myself, my personality, and my more or less unfeathered opinions on whatever random topic I decide to talk about during the day. Whereas the idol VTubers, they are selling that. They are selling the idol VTuber. They are selling the experience, the illusion, the anime girl come real thing, you know? And thus, you can't really have them breaking that illusion by straying out of character too much, or mentioning certain incendiary modern-day topics. Both because, again, it will, you know, destroy the illusion, and because of the danger associated with doing so. I mean, hell, look at my ass. My channel has been flagged to hell and back half a dozen times by YouTube. Several friends of mine have gotten yeeted off the internet in its entirety over the course of their careers for speaking their minds. It's a dangerous goddamn business to be on the internet these days, even more so if you are selling the idea of perfection of the anime girl come real. So I entirely understand that from a corporate perspective, you want to make damn sure that your talents all toe the line appropriately, even though I can't endorse it morally speaking. But this also ties into the idea of a VTuber platform, because any and all competition to YouTube is very welcome, and it would at the very least be censorious in a different way. I imagine that it would be far more, in fact I know it would be far more lenient on things like ecchi content and fan service, as the current generation of Hololivers have void panties, where if you manage to catch a glimpse up the skirts, it is simply just a black box, because, well, YouTube doesn't like that sort of stuff, whereas their old models actually did have, full-on underwear and such on. And, considering the aesthetic of the anime girl, a little bit of fan service would hardly be unusual, shall we say. But on YouTube, muy no bueno. I probably butchered that too. So it would probably be fairly restrictive in terms of speech, unless it established like different categories. Say, for example, okay, well, here's a political category, say whatever nonsense you want, or a free speaking category, or whatever. They could even, in fact, branch out, and the smartest thing for them to do, because I see two options here. One is that they create a streaming platform for their own talent exclusively, and then slap on a subscription fee, for example, and then entice people in with some exclusives here and there. Would work. In fact, it would probably work very well. Or two, the more ambitious approach, where you create a platform for all VTubers, free of YouTube censorship, and with far more lenient guidelines in accordance with the other companies, and then invite the other companies on to be like, okay, here you can be, we're all going to share the advertisement revenue, etc. We're going to all earn a lot of money, and then eventually begin opening that up as to be a full-on video sharing platform. Now, that would be a far more ambitious and in turn far more risky and expensive goal as well, particularly in regards to aforementioned interference by larger entities, but it would also be the, well, should I prefer? Because again, any and all competition at this point is more than goddamn welcome. Plus, the Japanese, although being a bit slower on the uptake on current day trends, have still proven far more resistant to the wokest curse than the West has, and even the recent Atelier Riser thing, for example, appears to have been a mistranslation, so I really goddamn do hope, even as now the tides begin to turn in the West, that we might see a genuine free alternative, or at the very least, freer alternative. And if that requires me to commission a cringy VTuber avatar, well, I've committed greater sacrifices in my time, I do suppose. Even though it is going to be painful. Anywho, that's... God damn it, just imagining it. I've been Arch. I'm gonna wrap this up now before I give myself a brain hemorrhage. What do you think though? Would it be a free speech platform? Probably not. Would it be freer than YouTube? Almost certainly, because YouTube. And if it could be located in Japan, it would also be, it'd be a hell of a lot more restrictive in terms of legal requirements as well, rather than a platform located in the US, which, of course, Google currently is. As to whether or not it would be, easily accessible to Westerners, that's a different question, as Hololive and Cover was for the longest time very, very hesitant to create an English-speaking branch, expecting all of us English barbarians to ruin their pretty little platform. Well, it turns out that we were the ones who made their success even larger, but details. Not like we're expecting thank yous or anything after all. But I do expect it to be at the very least a step in the right direction, even though if it'll have all of its own problems too. Again, the business model. Until next time. I have been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching. I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.